The incident in Nevada actually grows larger now that the federal agents have departed without a shot being fired, and it was really close to violence, people. In today's program, we're going to show you a lot of clips from various news sources, people that are lionizing the Bundy family, people that are demonizing the Bundy family. But before we go there, I want to make a couple comments. As Christians, we are very concerned about what our government looks like, who our leaders are. Is justice being pursued? Or is tyranny being brought to the people with the force of government? It is clear, not only arguable, but clear, that there is an enormous amount of tyranny that exists today. In some ways, it's far worse than what the colonists endured before they joined in the Declaration of Independence and the Revolutionary War to topple the government of King George III at that time. For those of you who enjoy reading the scriptures, I encourage you to read from 1 Samuel chapter 11, chapter 12, which deals with the change of government from King Saul to King David. There's a passage in the scriptures that many of us are familiar with, and I quote it to you now. From Issachar, men who understood the times and knew what Israel should do. What most of us don't know is that that passage is found in this context, and I read it to you. These are the numbers of the men armed for battle who came to David at Hebron to turn Saul's kingdom over to him, as the Lord had said. From Judah, carrying shield and spear, 6,800 armed men for battle. From Simeon, warriors ready for battle, 7,100, etc. And then it says, from Issachar, men who understood the times and knew what Israel should do. All these were fighting men who volunteered to serve in the ranks. They came to Hebron fully determined to make David king over all Israel. All of the rest of the Israelites were also of one mind to make David king. So if we want to be men of Issachar, familiar with the times, who know what Israel, what we should do, what the righteous should do, we need to know that it involves government. Sometimes it involves transition of government, change of government. And clearly from this text, it involved what was a short-lived civil war between the house of Saul and the house of David. There are many people in this country, how many I don't know, but there are many people who are itching for a fight. I am not one of them. I would love to see the righteous in government without a shot being fired. I would love to see righteousness in the judiciary, in education, again, using the ballot box, using the war without a gun, okay? Politics is war by another means. But there are people who don't think that we can do that. I don't share their belief, but they have some good arguments. We, as Christians, need to be like the men of Issachar who see the times, who know the times, who are focused on what's going on, trying to see the world through a Judeo-Christian grid of right and wrong. And in the clips that we're going to look at today, you'll see that there are people who are violently opposed to that. All right. The story is getting bigger because of Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. He just couldn't keep his mouth shut, and here's what he had to say.
Well, it's not over. We can't have an American people that violate the law and just walk away from it. So it's not over.
Well, if you've been watching this program, I said that. I said this is not going to go away. The federal government is not going to tuck its tail and run. This is the first time that I know of in my lifetime where federal agents were literally driven off the scene. Thank God for Sean Hannity, Fox News, because now they're covering it in earnest. And Sean had the family on. This is Sean's question, and this is what they said.
What is your response to Harry Reid?
I don't have a response for Harry Reid, but I have a response for every sheriff across the United States. Every county sheriff across the United States to disarm the federal bureaucrats. Take the federal United States bureaucrats' guns away. That's my message today.
Now, I don't agree with what Mr. Bundy just said. And part of my duty as a broadcaster, as a Christian leader, is to try, with the best of God's grace that I can receive, is to be like the men of Issachar, calling balls and strikes, saying the truth, not having an agenda cloud facts and hide facts. And so as you watch today's show and as you follow what happens with the Bundy family, there are times that you're going to hear them say things that are going to make you cringe. Like he just said, he wants sheriffs to disarm federal agents. I'm sorry, but that's, number one, it's not going to happen. And it shows a lack of understanding, a lack of prudence, almost a fairy tale mentality about the power of the sheriff versus the power of the federal government. It's not going to happen. And so when he makes a statement like that, it actually harms the credibility of some of the arguments that states' rights people have and militia people have, people who want to restore justice have. So what we're stuck with in this exact situation is something similar to the Boston Massacre. Thank God no blood was shed here, but there were protesters there that were provoking the British agents, throwing snowballs at them. The British agents snapped, used deadly force, and the rest is tragic history. This is the hand that's dealt to us in this exact moment. But we have to remember that when we hear the Bundy family say something that just makes us cringe, this is not only about them. This really is about all of us. And the question is, when we look at what's going on in Nevada and how this unfolds, will we have the wisdom of the men of Issachar to know the times, to see the times, and to know what we should do? Please, God, give us the grace. This is the voice of resistance.